Hi, everyone. This is Macy from the Love Advantage, and today I am here with a amazing woman, the Pleasure Priestess, and I'm so excited to share with you some tips on really how to be confident in the bedroom and really owning your sexuality. And so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Yeah, it's so great to see you. And we have known each other for a while, and I've always been such a huge admirer of your work and your energy and your power and your creativity and everything you do. And I had the pleasure of actually experiencing you in Kauai on our Wealthy Goddess retreat. And let me tell you guys, this woman really knows her stuff, and she's really like an experience that I honestly can't say that I've ever had anything like it before. And my heart was completely healed by the work that you do.
Thank
So
you much.
I'm just so excited to share and have you as a really great resource for the Love Advantage community. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to share a little bit about, should I read your bio?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Give everybody a little bit of a background.
Yeah. So let me pull this over here. So ladies, listen up. You're going to be blown away by this. So Yarah Sutra is the pleasure priestess on the cutting edge of spiritual and sexual consciousness. She's well on her way to becoming the world's leading authority in empowering women to liberate their sensual and erotic nature so that they can experience more pleasure and have ecstatic sex lives. Yarah's personal and professional journey is rooted in 22 years of applied study in dance, sexual healing, massage, ecstatic transformation, and ceremony. Totally witnessed that. And she's an award-winning body worker with over 16 years of experience in helping thousands of clients move from pain in their body to pleasure-filled lives. She's all too familiar with that deep ache you feel when you're chronically not getting your needs met. And she knows how painful it is to continuously not receive quality touch and the connection you long for. She went from a shut down sex abuse survivor to a sexual revolutionist, and she's here to eradicate the disempowered woman from our reality. Yarah Sutra believes that every woman has the right to fully embrace and express herself without apology. And so she created Unapologetically Woman, where she teaches you to transcend shame, unleash your authentic sexuality, and reclaim your feminine power. Yay! Are you guys so excited out there? I can't even wait. There's just so much ahead of you right now that I know is going to be super transformational for you. So is there anything else you want to share?
Yeah, actually, first of all, I would just love to, I'd love to acknowledge you, Macy. You have also been, very courageous on your path into love and really teaching people how to be adored for who they are instead of who they think they should be. And I would just love to shower you with my adoration for who you are,
Aww.
how you bring forth your own personality and your own touch into everything that you do. And I just think that that's amazing. And I think that that's actually a very important part of diving into feminine sensuality, is really understanding that we're finding our own rhythms, and that there's no cookie cutter way to be in life or in the bedroom or in anything, and that just finding our own way is really the way to go, and that you're modeling that so beautifully. And so I love what you're doing, and I thank you, and I'm really honored to be able to be here with you in this capacity to share this information with your people and with your team, and with all the ladies that are out there wanting this information, craving it. So thank you so very much for inviting me here to be with you.
Oh, thank you. That was so awesome. I so appreciate that. Thank you. It is truly, I do love the connection here. And I just am so grateful to have your expertise, because I admit, like, personally, I definitely still have some of those like shynesses around talking about sexuality. And it's something that I've faced a lot more in the last couple years, but it's definitely an awareness that you've given me that, there's really a lot more power and benefit to accessing this part of our being, not just, in having, sexual relationships, but just how that impacts our whole being. So cool.
Yeah, it really does. So, I mean, what we're going to talk about today, it really all boils down to, we're going to dive in deeper, of course, but the really diving into desire and pleasure, so it's not separate from you, where it's not, oh, okay, now I'm going to work, like now I'm going to be in pleasure, but where it comes to a point where we're so in it in ourselves that we're embraced by our sensuality, and it gets to exude from us at all times, not just in the bedroom for somebody else. But this is a power that we get to actually have for ourselves, whether we're in relationship with somebody else or not, because the first and foremost, most important relationship that we can have is with ourselves. And so, if anybody takes one thing away from this interview today, is that this is for you personally. This isn't for you to have to go and share with your partner so you can show up and wow them with your skills. This is like to have a relationship with pleasure and sensuality at all times, whether you're single or whether you're in partnership. But you just have that because it is a power. Right? Pleasure is powerful. And, you don't feel pleasure and pain at the same time. So it's actually also a healing tool that can be used on a daily basis, and not something that's just to be shared with somebody else, but something that is to be used to heal our wounds and our souls, and make us whole and complete, and stop compartmentalizing all these aspects of us.
Oh my God. I'm seriously like so in love with that. That is so cool. Like, I love that it's not separate. I love that it's not to wow another person. I love that it's really like just for us. So like, will you go into like even more of how you see people like leveraging that power in all aspects of their life? Maybe some specifics.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, let me tell you how it's affected me. Right.
Okay.
First of all, I also like to just give a disclaimer before I dive in. Particularly because, whoever is going to be watching this video probably isn't familiar with my style. And so I just think that it's appropriate to mention that there could possibly be profanity flying out of my mouth, because I'm a fully expressed woman. And so I could also possibly use words to describe the female or the male anatomy that might trigger somebody. So generally, if you've seen an R-rated movie, we should be fine. But there are some words that might trigger some people. So I just like to be upfront that this interview might not be suitable for work.
Right.
You might want to put in headphones. I like to keep it to a minimum, but I just like to say that, sometimes I'll just get on a roll and those words can just come flying out of my mouth. So as long as everybody understands that this is just me being real as I'm being in service to your sexual pleasure, then we should be fine.
Okay. So if we're triggered by a word, to not really take that so personally.
Right. Not take it personally and not discredit the rest of the sentence. Like not to focus on that one word and like disregard everything else that could be a really powerful piece for somebody to look at. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No swear jar, I mean.
Right. No swear jar.
No swear jar, and we're just gonna be real. And I really appreciate that. I think, I just can't wait to hear what you have to say. So where were we? So you were gonna share your experience with it.
Yeah, like how I came to be the pleasure priestess is going through this through myself, right? And so, I mean, right now, like you spoke to my bio and you gave this beautiful depiction of who I am. And it's because you know me as fully tapped into my feminine power. And I am more than I've ever been before, right? It's a lot easier for me to draw in what I really desire. And, my life is pretty freaking epic like that, I've got my clients and I have an amazing lover. And last year I was able to travel to Hawaii 6 times. And, I went to Sedona and like, I've just been traveling all over creating the lifestyle that I want. Not everybody is up for that lifestyle, but, it's just free flowing for exactly right for me. In fact, right now, like I've been in Washington for a month and I'm staying up here through the rest of the winter. And I said that I would never return to Washington. That's where I'm originally from. I never would return during the winter time, but I fell in love and he's up here. So I'm spending a lot more time up here. But it has been a hell of a journey for me to grow into who I am right now. And it might come as a shock to most that, 14 years ago, I was a disempowered woman. I had survived an abusive past, sex abuse and verbal abuse and just a lot of abuse in my past. And I got really good at compromising away my true desires to make everybody else a priority. Now, that's normal for a lot of women. But for me, it left me with a body that was full of pain and a belief of unworthiness and, frankly, an empty bank account too. My pleasure, I'm the pleasure priestess now, but my pleasure back then was chemically induced. I was medicated with a combination of prescriptions and like wine and alcohol and just to make it through, right? Just to survive. And I really didn't see a point of life. And honestly, I spent 16 years regularly contemplating ending my life. So, not a whole lot of true pleasure there. And then in 2004, I was a massage therapist living in Hawaii, and a friend gave me a CD called Chakra Transcendence. And he told me that when he picked it up, he had a vision of me. So, if you fast forward a few years and a few wild turns of events, I ended up meeting the woman that was on the CD that he gave me. And this was a big turning point of my life. So even though I was struggling financially and personally, at the time I was living in an RV with my family, I knew that it was absolutely imperative that I made a commitment to take action and change my life. So I invested 7 years and thousands of dollars and multiple international trips over the years to mentor with this woman, to really learn the secrets of feminine empowerment.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big deal. And through that time, you know, I've continued my transformational education. I've been initiated into 3 different lineages as a tantric priestess and a shamanic healer. You know, and more, I have become a master of the body. So now I put all of this into teaching women. You know, I personally work with the sexually ripening woman to help them experience more pleasure so they can create that sacred, ecstatic sex life that they long for. And I feel absolutely blessed to be able to use my gifts and this lifelong experience that I've had to really teach women the sacred feminine arts. That's a key that has been missing for a really long time, is that this part of us is sacred. Sex is sacred. Pleasure is sacred. And so, you know, I've mentored hundreds of women over the years. Clients, community members, random strangers that I just, you know, like happen upon that, you know, it's such an important aspect of who I am. And the common thread is I have people coming up to me telling me how this path has changed their life. And that's what I'm here to do. Like you mentioned, you know, in my bios, I'm here to eradicate the disempowered woman from our reality. And what I find to be the most powerful, renewable resource that we have to us is our sexual power. And like I said in the beginning, that's not the power we have when we're necessarily having sex with somebody else. That's us being tapped into our sexuality and the true, authentic expression of our personal sexuality. Because my personal sexuality is going to be different than your personal sexuality, right? And so there is no one way to do it. Yet, unfortunately, most of, at least the Western women, where we've learned our sexuality is high school health class, Hollywood, porn, right? And so it gives us this cookie cutter way to be, and that can shut women down, and it can make them feel like something's wrong with them if they're not operating at that same level or even interested in operating at that same level. So I'm really, really clear that I want to help women tap into what is sacred to them, what feels good to them, what is their true, authentic desire.
Yes, I love that. And that's really what I long for too, is that feeling of like, how can we access that and uncover what is our authentic sexual kind of personality. I don't know how to word it, but like, will you share some of the ways that we can do that? Because I think our lack of confidence in this area, or even like some of my clients who maybe have been single for a while or just coming out of a relationship, and maybe they're, you know, later in life, 40s or 50s even. And it's really scary, like to even think about getting naked. Like, how do we support ourselves and develop that confidence?
Oh, that's a really good question, right? So I think that one of the main reasons that there is a lack of confidence is because the woman is so disconnected from what her desire actually is, right? Like, she's been letting, like the person I have in my head, they've been letting somebody else lead the way in sex. and they haven't been speaking up or clearly communicating because they're not clear. So my first method to really developing your confidence and your sexual confidence is to explore what you want. And that exploration doesn't start with a partner. That exploration starts personally, one-on-one with self, right? So self-pleasure. I throw out the word masturbation. I don't use that word because it's just so masculine driven. And it feels more like a get in there and get it done kind of thing, where self-pleasure is the exploration of the divineness of your body. No matter what size your body is. Your body is, our bodies, everybody's bodies is full of all these beautiful receptors for pleasure. It's like an erotic playground to be explored. And so if you're hating on yourself and not realizing how luscious every piece of you, including like in between the fingers, like right here, such a soft, lovely, delicious part of our skin that we totally ignore. Like we get in there and we wash our hands and we do this thing and then we're done and we're on to the next thing. And we don't really like explore what the terrain is like on our body. So exploration of your body and really starting to explore it with appreciation for it, right? And if somebody is like not feeling comfortable about their body because they're not the size they used to be, or they're not the size they want to be, or they're not the size that the model looks like in the magazine, guess what? The model isn't even the size of the model that looks like in the magazine. But to find that sense of gratitude and appreciation for whatever your body looks like is one of the number one factors. And if you can't find that gratifying piece, that like why you're grateful, just Google a dead body, right? Like you're alive. You're alive, you're here. And so that right there is reason enough to be appreciative. And so let's say you're bigger than than what you want to be. Well, that is just more to love and more to appreciate. And in my own story, I've gone through many different body phases. There was a point that I was pushing 180 pounds, and I didn't like to have sex either. And the reason that I didn't like to have sex is because we lived in an apartment complex that our closet doors were all mirrors. And if I looked over there, I was like, oh, I look disgusting. And it was all of this negative self-talk that was getting me down, because when I was actually in the pleasure, the sexual pleasure, I wasn't really thinking about how my body looked, right? I was just feeling it, right? So the exploration of feeling, like getting out of our heads, because our heads have, they're full of ego, and they're full of shoulds and shouldn'ts and coulds and could'ves and, like everything that isn't present moment. In fact, I liked how my mentor put it. She called it the itty bitty shitty committee, right? And I use that term a lot now because we have these voices in our heads. But if we just turn that off, maybe turn on some music, get out some coconut oil, and pay attention to how our fingertips feel on the nape of our neck, right? Across our eyes, like running our fingers through our hair, and not doing it while looking, not doing it while looking in a mirror, but like closing our eyes and feeling the sensation of all of our, like we have all of these nerve endings that are like, oh, it feels so good. That's one of the first ways to develop the confidence, is to really get in touch with how we feel, how it feels, the sensation, rather than how we think it should feel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that.
Exploration is like key. It's key.
Yeah, so really getting clear on your own relationship with your body and being willing to explore. And I love that you're talking about all our body parts, you know, because I immediately think about just our sexual parts, and it's like, okay, well, our whole being is sexual. Like our whole being is that creative energy. And I really love that you said that there's just more to love when we're rejecting our size or thinking we're too big or too whatever.
We're too small. Like some women feel like they're too skinny, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just we have it set in our minds of how we're supposed to look. But one thing that really helped me, you know, if you go and you take a timeline of what the perfect body has been throughout time, it has never just been one type of body, right? Like it used to be like in the 60s, I think the model's name was Twiggy, and she was super skinny, like skin and bones, and that's what was attractive. And then there was another time that would be considered a poor person, right? And it was the bigger bodies, the more fluff, the more lusciousness. That was considered ideal. And then in the 80s, it was like these really big muscular bodies. And so like if you take a look at history, there's always been some kind of variation. And for me, that was profound to find out, because then it's like, oh, well, you know, there is no ideal body type. There, you know, like there's what is remaining healthy. Like I think that one of the things that we can do is get healthy, but healthy doesn't necessarily mean thin.
Yeah.
It's different for everybody. So it's letting go of these false idealistic fashion gods, right? The body type gods that are saying this is what you should be. And it's about coming into true relationship with ourselves in each and every moment. Because when we hate on ourselves, then we turn to things to fill voids. And those things are usually not healthy. And they just feed into that self-loathing. And then we never get into right relationship with ourselves. And then we're never in the pleasure zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're always just trying to feed something, whether that's, like I said earlier in my story, like I was self-medicating just to feed my worthiness, and to actually, mine was to numb everything out. Like we try to numb the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
When instead, if we just, you know, feel into it and start to give ourselves some pleasure, then the other bad habits will just start to diminish, and we come into this place of, you know, like pleasure isn't just about our sexual organs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you said that you just think, oh, sexual organs. Well, I mean, if you want to think about it that way, the biggest, most gratifying sexual organ that we have is our skin.
Mm-hmm.
And that covers us from head to toe. And I tell you what, for me, they're like one of the most sensual things that my lover can do when connecting with me in an intimate way is to kiss or lick the back of my neck and my back, right? That is not a typical like sexual place. But when he touches my back, and he puts attention on my back, it sends me through the roof. That's not like I said, that's not typical. The typical places are, you know, tits, ass, and yoni, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what they focus on.
Right.
And for me, an inexperienced or an immature lover, that's what he will go directly to. And I'm like, that might be the turn on for the guy. And I mean, it actually kind of is. Like their genitals, you know, is a focus for them, but with men, it doesn't mean that they don't enjoy the rest of their body being explored. But for women, it's starting elsewhere and then working towards. And that's one of the things that I teach women is do that yourself first.
Yeah.
Right? How you self-pleasure is how you're going to show up in sex, and what you're going to, like, if you just go straight for the clitoris to get yourself off or to take care of business. I hear that one all the time. Oh, I took care of business. This is not business. This is pleasure.
Yeah. Right.
Pleasure. Right?
Yes.
So, when I spend time self-pleasuring, I don't start at my vagina, I don't start there. I start at my hands. I self-massage. My toes are part of the exploration. I get every part of my body, and then I will move towards my genitals. And then I'll move away from them, because I don't want just like hard focused, get her done type of an experience.
Right.
I don't want that with myself, and I definitely don't want that with a lover.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a quickie can be fun, but more often than not, like in a relationship, I don't even want to have a quickie until I've explored so many different realms with pleasure and sex with that lover. And the only way that I knew that was to do that with myself. So when I shortchanged myself, it was really easy for me to allow somebody else to shortchange me as well.
Oh, wow. That's a huge one. Yeah. I think that's really big. So let's say that again. Like when you were shortchanging yourself and your own self-pleasure, which probably even beyond, pleasuring yourself, like pleasure in general, probably,
Right.
Then you find that you were willing to accept less in partnership.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay.
And that's what
That's
I talked to, what I mentioned when it was really easy for me to compromise away my desires.
Uh-huh.
Right? And make everybody else's a priority. I thought that was powerful. Let me give them what they need, and then I'll just take what's left. That's just,
Yeah.
it's just not a good way to treat yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And in relationship, every single relationship, we're teaching people how to treat us.
Yes.
Right? And
Totally
the way
agree.
that we do that is by how much value we put on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm constantly compromising, yeah, I guess that's okay. Yeah, no, whatever you want. Well, then I'm not actually really getting what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, there are times to compromise, and then there are times to have really strong boundaries where it's like, that's not okay. And
Right.
I say that, like, I am having let me rephrase that. I am having the most successful relationship that I have ever experienced. Now, I was married for 22 years, and you would consider that a pretty successful relationship. We got together at 15 and 16 years old, and, we were together for 22 years, and I haven't even been with this man for a full year yet. And I'm feeling like it's one of the most successful relationships that I have ever had, because I set really clear, strong boundaries, and we operate, and he sets really clear, strong boundaries, and we operate within those boundaries so we both get our needs, wants, and desires fulfilled, not compromised.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because when you're compromising, nobody is getting what they want.
Right.
But when you're setting up these structures and these boundaries because you've explored, right? You've explored what you want, and now you know. So the next way is to express what you want, right? So first you have to explore it, and then you have to start expressing it. And it starts small.
Yeah, I want to hear about that. Can we expand on that? Because I think that's a really big, huge topic. I mean,
yeah, definitely. And I will start with, it starts small.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, for example, just a little thing, but it was huge. So when my marriage ended, the first month of grocery shopping after my marriage ended was brutal for me. I was in the grocery store for so long because I'd walk down every aisle And I'd been with this man, like I said, for 22 years. I knew exactly what he wanted, right? What he liked from the grocery store. And I could go in and just like grab things. But then when I walked down the aisles, I was like, wait, what do I want?
Wow.
Right? I stood in front of the chips for the longest time. Like, what kind of chips do I want? And I came home with a bag of chips that my ex would have absolutely hated. And my son was like, you only bought those so I wouldn't eat them. And I was like, no, I bought these because I want them. I want to eat them. My decision had nothing to do with you. So exploring what brings you pleasure isn't just about your body. It's about what you desire. So what is it that you desire? Do you desire to go to bed early? Do you desire to stay up late? Do you desire to have the room warm? Do you desire to have the room cold? It's exploring all of your options until you get to something that feels good, instead of just settling into a habit and then sticking with that.
Yes.
Because you might not even realize that our own desires change.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They change over time. So being able to first explore and then communicate, like I communicated to my son, my decision had nothing to do with you. My decision had because I wanted it. And then I pulled out another bag of chips and I was like, and I got these for you because I knew what he liked too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I didn't compromise and I didn't make him compromise.
Yeah.
We got our desires fulfilled. And so, you know, you start small by picking out what kind of chips you want to eat, right? And when somebody says, oh, what do you want for dinner? Not saying, oh, whatever you want. No, taking the time to check in.
Yeah.
Oh, what do I want for dinner?
Yeah.
Right? And then, because, you know, I am the pleasure priestess and I do deal a lot with sexuality, I also got really bold with communicating, you know, because I became single again, which meant I was exploring new relationships. And every single relationship that I've been in, whether it was, you know, one day or 22 years, all relationships are research into finding the truth of who we are. And so, you know, I remember I was with a new beau. It was actually one of the, it was the first gentleman that I was with after my husband. And he moved a lot faster than I wanted to move, right? And so we were kissing on his bed and he kept trying to lay me down, right? Like because we were sitting up kissing, like it was like some of our first kissing, and he kept trying to like lay me down, and I just like kept putting my hand, like you can't see it, but I just kept putting my hand down like a kickstand, like I'm not ready for that yet. Without saying I'm not ready for that, I was very, very well, like drawing a strong boundary to a point, like I had done it so many times that I pushed him off me, and I was like, listen, we're not at that level yet. We're not going immediately into laying down. Like right now, we're exploring our kiss, and we don't have to be laying on top of each other to explore that, right? And so that was a really bold communication, but I also didn't start dating anybody for a while after my husband. Like I said, I was with him for 22 years. So the thought of like just jumping into the next relationship didn't seem supportive to me. So I spent that time like really getting clear on what I want. I want to move slower. I want to have salt and vinegar chips. I want to, you know, like I want to do this and I want to do that. And that exploration made my communication and my expression of that clear, right? Because there was no, well, I don't really know, because I spent time exploring. So now I can clearly communicate. Right. And when I clearly communicated, he was like, oh, okay. but he didn't know anything else besides laying down to go into that kiss. And I was like, no, we're exploring this in this position, in the vertical position. Like, we don't need to be horizontal to explore a kiss.
Right.
So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's really important, because I think there is a huge theme of being really clear and knowing yourself, which then naturally leads to your ability to communicate it, because you know your body.
Yes.
And, I guess being able to have the courage to do that is just part of owning your own pleasure.
Yeah. And you said a key word is the courage, right? Mm-hmm. Because as women in particular, we are trained, we are conditioned to take care of everybody else. Yeah. And whether or not a particular person has went through abuse, every woman has it deeply embedded in her cells that, like, keep the man happy, to keep the man, to stay safe, to all of this, right? So a lot of the times we let go of our own timelines, our own time frames of how fast or slow we want to move, because we want to keep the other person happy. And then we end up doing things that later we regret. And so coming into our own divine timing is another part of this confidence piece, right? Like, I was, one of the ladies that I was coaching, she doesn't like to have sex right away whenever she's dating. She wants to make sure that the man is invested in her, not invested in sex. And so she wanted to learn how to clearly communicate in a way that didn't just say, hey, I'm not going to have sex with you, because that's a turn off too, right? So it's like staying in this state of turn on and pleasure without crossing your own boundaries. And so, like, there's ways to communicate our boundaries and our desires that are still enticing and still seductive, but still draw a boundary that is like, not right now. You need to back off. You need to hold on. You need to wait. You need to put in the effort. Everything is so quick nowadays with internet and texting, and everything's like, like instant gratification. And so, and unfortunately that's something that porn did too, is like instantly getting to the sex. And, a lot of women, we just want to warm up to it. We want to make sure that this person that we're with, like, deserves us, right? Like, that's a big thing. It's not like, do you deserve them? Do they deserve you? Mm-hmm. And so to iron that out, and just to be able to tell somebody, like, I'm super into you, and I'm just not that kind of woman. Like, I don't want to move that fast.
Okay. Is that what you would say? I mean, I think some examples would be awesome.
Okay. So, like, what I told this client specifically, she was really into this man, and he wanted to move faster, and people respond to touch a lot. Mm-hmm. So what I told her to do, this is what I said. So, like, lean in, like people like to get up close and personal. Mm-hmm. And that shows that there is attraction, that shows that you're into them. And that's what they want to know. Right. So what I had her do is when I said that when he's moving fast, or like, even if you're out at dinner, I said, put your hand on his leg, right? And say, listen, I am totally turned on by you. And, like, when I'm ready, like, I'm down and I'll let you know. But I just move a little slower than you do. I just like to make sure, to invest more time before we jump to this level. And I keep like soft, delicious eye contact. And I put my hand on their body, and I don't just like put my hand there like, hey dude, like, I'm totally into you and let's do this later. It's like soft, gentle, like, hey, I would do this on the leg a little more
Mm-hmm.
than the arm, just depending on where you're sitting. But because I can't show you my leg right now, like, hey, so I really like you and I'm really into you, and you definitely turn me on, but I just move slower than you do, and I'd like to take a little more time before we move to that level of intimacy. Does that sound okay? But when I'm when I'm ready, I promise I will let you know.
Okay, that's beautiful. Okay, I have another question then.
Yeah.
Because here's what comes up. For me, like, I never necessarily felt like that, like, sexy mama. You're like this sexual goddess because you're the pleasure priestess. But, like, what about the women who might feel like sort of awkward, like that don't really feel that? Like, how can we cultivate more of our, maybe it's our sensuality? Like, how do we access that? Because I know it's in our bodies, and I know when I move, like, I can feel it more, but what's the secret?
Well, the secret's different for everybody. I'm going to be honest with you,
Okay.
right? Because people feel awkward about different things. So when somebody starts to explore, so going back to that first one, explore, when somebody starts to explore, they get more in tune with their own level of sensuality, right? And maybe somebody isn't so down with self-pleasure, although I would say start getting down with that. But dancing is another amazing way to get, like, for females, or for those who identify as women, is to really get into our sensual self, whatever that is. Now, like, when I see you, Macy, I see you as, like, you have a sensuality, but you also have this, like, quirky silliness. So, like, I could see you, like, adding your own twist into what I said, not trying to copy me, not trying to emulate me necessarily with the move that I did with the, when I'm ready, I'll let you know. But, I could see you being more silly with it, but still seductive, because the kind of man that you would draw in is going to want that quirkiness, is going to want that silliness, right? Yeah. They're not, no man is looking specifically for my kind of sensuality. There are men that like my kind of sensuality, and women too. And then there are some that would be totally turned off by me. And I'm fine with that, because then that means that they're going to find their true match. So it's like when you explore your own sensuality, you're going to get more comfortable in communicating your own sensuality.
Yes. Right? Okay,
And
I love that.
Dance is a beautiful way to do that. Now, to put on the slow and seductive music, but then to find your own rhythm within it, right? So, like, for example, if you could think of a way that you could bring your own silliness, like, I just know you from a different realm. So, like, I keep thinking of that little kitty that you had when you did that video. Yeah. And, when you were doing your talk, and just like you have your own sense of style. So how would you,
Yeah, I think that's important. I really appreciate that, because I know it can feel sort of intimidating, and it's just the same thing with media and body types and all these things where, there isn't a cookie cutter. So, like, example, I mean, if we boil it down, and I'm just going to take a stab at this, the example essentially tells us, one, to just be honest, two, to lean in and help them feel confident that you're there with them. Because I think that when we get like, oh my God, they're doing this to me, or they're making me do this, then we get into this weird victim thing. And it's really about communicating. It's like being honest. And I totally agree. Like, even having the body contact, no matter what your style is, it's disarming, and it brings in more, like, connection, just that connection. and then being able to, from what I heard, expressing your appreciation for that person, however it comes out for you. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? You just make me so happy. You know, you make me happy, and I'm pretending like I'm doing this. Like I'm touching their shoulder or have my hand just resting on their, like, you know what? You totally make me happy. And I love where this relationship is going. And I would like to take our time. And I'll let you know when I'm ready. Like, if we just get to the bare basics, that seems to be a nice little formula there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Acknowledge.
Yeah.
Number one, you want to acknowledge the connection, right?
Yeah.
So it's about, I mean, connection, that's what matters, is like, are you connected to them? Are you giving them eye contact? Like, I totally had another thing pop up in my head while you were talking, you know, like, I might rub their leg. Somebody else might jump in their lap and be like, listen here. Like, I totally love what's happening between us.
Yeah.
And you totally like make me all excited and like, oh yeah, but I'm just not ready like to go there yet. So, you know, like, let's get a few more dates under our belt and then see where it goes. So there's so many different ways to approach it that can be authentic to the woman who is feeling that. And, you know, maybe somebody else is like, I don't even want to touch him. Well, then maybe you shouldn't be in that, like, pursuing that relationship. Right.
Yeah.
So,
right.
you know, like, it's like, first of all, like you said, if somebody's like, oh, they're doing this to me, like, he's trying to get me to, that's not a good place to be.
Really bad place.
Right. And so we get in this defensiveness, like, I got to protect my boundaries. Well, yes, we do have to protect our boundaries, but it's like we don't have to go to battle for them all the time. Sometimes it's necessary to draw our sword and cut somebody down because they're being abusive or, you know, like just they're being wretched, right? And then there's other times that we need to draw strong, loving boundaries that are easy for our desire to be received.
Yes.
We want to say it in a way that it's going to be received and not be repellent.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that's a huge thing. And I do see it so much that people have had bad relationships in the past or something has happened and then, you know, they get triggered by something or the fear comes up and then all of a sudden it feels like they're out of control or they're being, you know, they're the victim. And I think, you know, really being conscious of taking care of releasing your old relationships too is a big part of the work. It's not like bringing that
it's huge
resentment to the next relationship. So,
or the comparison, right?
Yeah.
Because we think a lot of the times we can get stuck in this pattern of thinking like, oh my God, all men are like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we take the wounding with us everywhere we go. And one of the things that I started doing was clearly communicating. Oh, wow. Like, this is bringing up some old stuff for me, you know, is like getting out of this shame and blame. Like we can shame ourselves for where we're at and we can blame the other person for where they're at and what they're making us feel. And it's part of the empowerment is claiming ownership to our experience and being in this place of compassion that you might not be the only one feeling awkward, right?
Right.
Like, they've got feelings too, and they can be feeling awkward, and like fear of rejection goes both ways. And like, it's just coming from this place of compassion for, sex can be a little awkward to talk about. And sometimes you can even just say that, oh, I'm feeling a little awkward with this.
Yeah, I agree.
You know? It's just coming down to being willing to have courage and, you know, like explore your own needs, express your own needs, and like another one, number 3, is embody your own needs, right? So another thing that is really common is to look outside of ourselves to get a need fulfilled, right? And so then we come to this new relationship out of a sense of desperation, right? Because we're trying to get this filled in us, like we're only. And the thing is that when we're loving ourselves in a way that is fulfilling, that's what we're going to exude, right?
Yes.
It's, like I have clients that, I'm looking for a man that da, da, da. And I'm like, well, first of all, your first problem with that is that you're looking for a man. That's your first problem. Or looking for a partner. Like, I don't want to like have this be gender specific, but like looking for a partner, when really, if you're alone, what you should be looking for is how to fulfill yourself. Because when we're taking care of our own desires on like epic levels and living our lives, that's when we become attractive. And I don't mean like sexy attractive. I mean like magnetic to other people, right? And to other people of the caliber that we want to be at. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's completely what I teach, is that we have to be adoring ourselves first. And when we are in love and adoring ourselves, then the rest is just inevitable. And it's everything we do along those lines. I mean, it's, being connected to our body, like you're teaching us right now, but also like, how we take care of our body, what we put in our body. It's how we
on our body
present ourselves in community. And it's how we, nurture our emotionals and our shadows and our, the parts of us that we struggle to like, and also celebrate all the things that we were naturally gifted as a person. I mean, that's really the whole philosophy in the Love Advantage programs is to just really honor that. And then your relationship ready and your person will show up. It's not like you're going to go immediately out and hunt down a guy and make it happen until you've done the inner work.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So,
and like I said in the beginning, like our number one priority, our number one relationship is the relationship to self.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So, I mean, even if you are a religious person, you're like, the number one relationship is your relationship to God. Well, your relationship to source is through your relationship to yourself. Mm-hmm. And so it's being your own best lover, being your biggest advocate, being the person that you want to show up in your life. When we come to a sense of desperation, we're calling in other people who are desperate.
Yes.
And they're going to be looking for us to fulfill something too. And then it's so easy to slip into that pattern where you're now compromising your desires because you want to fulfill that other person. And you're losing yourself. And then you're right back to the cycle of disappointment. And so right now, it's just like getting clear that it's time to ditch the disappointment. But that starts with self. It starts with the relationship with self. And yes, not just sexual self-pleasure, but how do you pleasure yourself, right? So for me, one thing that is extremely important is pedicures. Like, my feet are so important to me. I'm a dancer, and I spent a lot of time on my feet, and I was a massage therapist for many years, and people were looking down at my feet. And so my feet are just this beautiful place of self-pleasure. I give myself foot massages. I rub my feet with coconut oil. I either go out and get pedicures, or, if I'm not in the space to do that and I want to put my finances to something else, I'll give myself pedicures. And so it's like keeping in that place of caring for myself and realizing what is important to me and giving myself that. So it's like everyone who's watching this video, like, write down what is important to you that just feels luxurious and makes you feel sensual. and then give that to yourself.
Yes. I love that. That is so awesome. I think that this has been so amazingly informative, and I've had many ahas, and I just think that you're such a gift, and I'm so grateful to know you and to be in your circle and to have received healing from you and everything. Thank you. So I'm wondering, like, if someone wants to reach out to you, the Pleasure Priestess, how would they connect with you?
Well, the easiest way to connect with me is to opt in to my email list, and you actually get a free guide on how to get what you really want during sexy time.
Okay.
So the free guide, if you just go to www.unapologeticallywoman.com, you put in your name and your email, and then you'll automatically get the guide as well, and then you'll be on my email list.
Okay.
If somebody wants to contact me directly, like, I need you, then you can also go to Yarah Sutra at gmail.com.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so everybody needs that guide. So that's really good. That's super.
Everybody needs that guide.
Gift. That's a really good gift.
And it's a free gift. Like, all it takes is you putting in your email address and your name.
Okay.
And, for those who really don't know what they desire, I do run an online course called How to Activate Your Desire. And it's really about manifestation. So if somebody is interested in participating in that, they can definitely feel free to contact me.
Okay.
It just all depends on what level somebody is at. But the easiest way is definitely to go grab that guide right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. That will definitely be shared. And so I'm just so excited about this. There's just so much to offer, and I thank you so much. And I look forward to more amazing things that we can share together in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I think it's a good match. You're teaching about, like that adoration for self and like the love advantage and then, like the sex pleasure priestess, right? That goes right in alignment with that. So I just really appreciate the opportunity that you gave me to come on here and to share. And I just, I feel a really great connection with you, and I like the idea of us, collaborating more in the future.
Awesome. Well, we will totally talk to you soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.